This is such a life-changing book. You need to read this book if you have not read it. Please read it. So today I'm doing a book haul, but most importantly it's a spiritual book haul. After doing so much reading and investing a lot of my time and energy into spirituality, I am ready to share my spiritual book haul. And if you want to see more videos like this, please let me know because it's a key interest of mine. I'd love to share more of this stuff on my channel, and if you guys enjoy it, then we'd be a perfect match. So I'm not only going to be sharing my spiritual books that I have bought recently and invested in the last year, but I'm also sharing the books that have changed my life. These books have honestly made such a huge impact in my life. They've changed my thinking, changed the way I operate, changed my views on the world, changed everything pretty much about my life. I feel like after having read these books, I'm honestly not the same person. So if it speaks to you, I definitely urge you to go and just try it, even read the blurb, have a look at what it's about, because if you have that connection with it through what I'm saying, then it's probably coming into your life for a reason. It's probably something that you're meant to read. So with that being said, let's get into the video. The first book I'm going to talk about is literally the book I just finished this week. This book is The Alchemist. This book is by Paulo Coelho. I can't even begin to describe how amazing this book is. I first heard this book probably about a year ago. It is one of the classics if you research books to read, if you're into spirituality or manifestation, law of attraction, things like that. This book definitely comes up. I saw some people saying not to bother reading it or it wasn't that good. So back then I was like, oh, maybe not. Like, I didn't bother giving it a go based on what other people had said. And then recently this book kept coming into my life more and more whenever I researched books that I needed to read. This is what came up. So I was like, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna read it, and I'm so glad that I read it. I'm almost upset that I took like one person's like negative opinion about it as a reason not to read it, because this is honestly one of the best books I have ever read, if not the best book I have ever read. The reason that it's one of the best books I've ever read is the message behind it and the impact that it's had on me. But this is basically a story about a young boy who goes on a journey to find a treasure. The message within this book is so powerful that even in the last week since I finished reading it, I feel like it has changed my life, and it has made me feel like I've changed the path that I'm on, and it's even kind of spurred me in a direction of following what I feel like I'm meant to be doing in life. I feel like no matter what age you are, no matter what background, whether you're into spirituality or not, this book is something that everyone has to read. And if you are into spirituality, you will just love this book even more. I cannot recommend it enough, and it's such an easy read as well. I read it in literally 3 days. Also, I love the cover itself. On the back it simply says, "To realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation," which is actually a quote from the book. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it there with this one, but this, please get it if you have not read it. I love it so much, and it honestly has changed my life. The next book I have is The Four Agreements. This book is by Don Miguel Ruiz. I hope that is how you pronounce it. It is basically a very spiritual book. The book outlines 4 agreements, and these agreements are to be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. It's again a very easy read. I'd highly recommend it. It won't take you long to read if you get this book, and if you are on a spiritual journey, I feel like it's an absolute must-have. The next life-changing book I have is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. This book, although obviously by the title you can tell this is a finance book, and this is a book about money. Despite that, which is very surprising, it is again quite a spiritual book. The messages in this book are very much related to the law of attraction and all about mindset. It basically underlines how where you are financially in your life is due to your mindset and the way that you think. One of the messages that Robert Kiyosaki talks about is when people see something that they want, they'll say, I can't afford that. But he will say, how can I afford that? And that's often where we switch our brains off and just say, nope, I can't get it. It's out of my budget, out of my price range. But there are ways that you can afford something. And if you open your mind up to the idea of thinking bigger and thinking how you can afford things, then that is basically determining your position in life. A lot of our financial education has come from our upbringing, and if you were raised in a middle class family, your views on money were taught to you by your parents. So how are you supposed to think or know what to do as a rich person if you've been raised in a middle class family? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's just such an interesting read, and it really does show the power of the law of attraction and of educating yourself. And that's one of the things I've realized so much about reading lately, is you can educate yourself, you can educate your mind, and it can transform you and your life. And if you have any interest in learning about money and about the way that you choose to spend your finances and about your future finances, I'd say 100% read this book. It's so powerful. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Secret. I'm going to put it up here on the screen because I don't have a physical copy. I listened to the ebook. I actually listened to this book quite a while ago, but I wanted to mention it in this video because it is such an important book. If you don't know about the law of attraction, it is basically about how your thoughts control your life, and thoughts become things, like attracts like. And if you're new to the concept, or if the concept is something that you want to learn more about, if you haven't read The Secret or even watched the movie, you need to watch it or you need to read it. I feel like in this day and age quite a lot of people are familiar with it already, but I'm just putting this out there for those of you who aren't, because it basically explains the basis of what the law of attraction is, and this is sort of where my spiritual journey even began, just learning about manifestation and the law of attraction. And once you know this secret to life, it really does change the way you think completely. And if you're not into reading, I would suggest watching the movie. If you can't read books, I don't really know why you'd be watching this video if you don't read.
If you don't like books, I don't know why you would watch this.
But anyway, maybe you just want to break from books, you want to watch a movie. Go watch this movie. I feel like it has changed so many people's lives, and you don't even have to be a spiritual person to understand this message and receive this message in your life. The next book I'm going to talk about is Manifesting Change, It Couldn't Be Easier by Mike Dooley. Again, I listened to this as an ebook. This book is basically all about change and welcoming in change. As people, as a world, as a universe, we're in a constant state of change. Embracing change and moving forward in life is a huge part of it, and to understand this, to accept it and to embrace it is really important, and this book basically underlines that. When I listened to this book, I feel like I wasn't necessarily in the best place to receive the message. It was the second book I read after The Secret, because after I read The Secret, I was like, I need to find out more about this. So this was another book about the law of attraction. However, I feel like it was a little bit in-depth and more advanced than where I was at. So I'd say if you're early on in your journey, I would say don't read this as the first book that you read, but it is a really powerful book. It's really well written. Definitely read this if you want to embrace change in your life, because that is what it basically focuses on. Next, I have a book by Yasmin Boland. This is called Moonology, Working with the Magic of Lunar Cycles. This book is all about the moon. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know, if you are into manifesting, this is a great book to read, because the moon actually is really powerful when it comes to manifesting. If you manifest, for example, on a new moon, that is the best time energy-wise to set out your intentions and to manifest and bring things to you at that time. And a full moon is the best time to release all that energy, to forgive and to let go. So if you are interested in this and you want to know a little bit more about manifesting and go even deeper, if you have learned about The Secret and, like I said, about manifesting change, this is then a really good option, because the moon is just another step when it comes to manifesting. It also goes quite in depth about astrology and zodiac signs and how to use it with your sun sign and things like that. So if you are into astrology, then this is a really awesome option as well. It's definitely not a difficult read, but if this is like your first time learning about the moon, I feel like it's at times been quite challenging for me. Some of the things in it are a little bit more advanced, I'd say. For people who already have some knowledge around those areas, this is a good book. Now we've got another finance book about money. This one is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Again, another legendary book. If you haven't heard of this book, it is very old. Originally published in 1937, but this one has been updated for the 21st century, so where there are some stories that are really old, they have updated it with also stories of present day people so that this generation can connect to the story a bit better. From the get-go, this book basically says that there is a message deep within it that is very powerful, and I guess like the secret to growing rich. And it says that you could have to read the book several times before you get the message, or at any point in the book the message might come to you, but it comes to you when you're ready for it. Even though it is a book about money, it is predominantly about manifestation and the power of your mind and the power of manifesting what you believe in and what you desire. So again, it's so crazy that there's books titled like Think and Grow Rich. You think it would attract people who are just like completely money driven, but realistically the message behind this is highly spiritual, and it's just saying that you can have anything you want if you set your mind to it and if you can manifest it to you. My current read, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. So I am currently reading this book now. I can't say my final thoughts on it because I am in the process of reading it. But this book is really something special. It is, again, a New York Times bestseller, as most of the books I've shown you today are. The author's story, even himself, is really, really incredible. It says in the beginning of the book that he basically was depressed and lived in a constant state of anxiety until he was about 30. And then one night he just had like a complete realization. The crazy thing was, he said that he didn't even come across like spiritual texts or like Buddhism or anything like that until years after he had had like an awakening, and I guess even experienced enlightenment. So this book is very in-depth, but it can be quite difficult to read because every sentence is so powerful and so meaningful that I literally feel like when I read it, I can't just read a whole page quickly. I have to pause on like every sentence to contemplate what it means and what it's saying, because it is that powerful. And although I haven't even read all of it or that much of it yet, it's already made a huge impact on me. Like the things that it teaches you and the things that it's saying are crazy, and things that I have not learned in any spiritual book so far. It's completely changed my viewpoint on everything again. I think that's what's so powerful about these books, is that they all have the same underlying message, but when you read a really good book, it just explains it to you in a way that you didn't even understand. Like it just adds another layer of understanding and another layer of depth, and I would highly recommend this again. However, I would say do some reading before you jump into this one if you again are new to this kind of stuff. The last book I'm going to share is my Crystal Bible. This one is by Judy Hall. This is basically a book that talks all about crystals. It has every single crystal you can imagine, and it basically goes into depth about like where it's found, how rare it is, its attributes, its healing, its position that you should wear it in. It explains like different ways that you can use crystals. It explains different shapes that they come in and how they work. If you are into crystals or you want to know more about crystals, I think this is a really good book to get and for a starting place. And the last book I'm going to talk about, I can't believe I almost forgot to talk about this because I don't have the physical copy with me because I've lent this book to my mom, but it is The Subtle Art by Mark Manson. This book is probably like, again, one of my favorite books I've read. This is basically what catapulted me into my spiritual journey as well. I feel like this book is so powerful, and the best thing about it is it can be read by anyone. This is such a life-changing book. You need to read this book if you have not read it. Please read it. It's one of those books that I feel like it speaks so well to today's current generation and today's current society. Like, it talks all about like social media and a way a lot of us think, and it can connect with this generation, like millennials, so well. The book never once really says that it's a spiritual book, and literally you could read this book and be like, you don't need to be spiritual or anything to read this book. When I began reading this book, like, I didn't identify as being a spiritual person, but by the end of it I realized that this book was a spiritual book. The underlying of this book is, I guess, a lot of the principles of Buddhism, and it's not something that you have to be into Buddhism or spirituality for. It's just such a worthwhile thing to read because it makes you question a lot of your views, a lot of your values, and the way you're living your life. And the thing that really sets it aside as well is the way it's written is like amazing. I had so many moments where I felt like my brain had exploded. Like, I learned so much from it, and it's also just so hilarious. Like, the way that it's written is so funny, which is why I feel like it's so appealing to everyone as well, because the author is like so humorous and has such good writing techniques. I literally love reading his work. So everything I've mentioned in this video is something that's so worthwhile reading. But if I could recommend 2 books to you the most out of any of the ones I've described, is The Subtle Art and The Alchemist. Please go and read The Subtle Art first if you haven't read any of these books. Like, just go and read it. I wish I could buy like 10 million copies and just send them out to everybody I know. But anyway, that is the end of my video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I have really enjoyed talking about this, and just sitting here and saying this stuff makes me realize like how much I love talking about this, and I really want to continue to share this stuff on my channel. So please let me know what you thought about this video, if you like this kind of thing, if you're into spirituality, even if you're not and you think these are some of the books that you might like to read, let me know. And don't forget to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you guys so much in my next video. Thank you for watching.